you very much, Ryan. Ryan is my special personal assistant who does all of this. He does the videotaping, and this goes on to YouTube, so you must watch it. And it's skygilbert.com. I don't know what he has to do with it, but it's on there. So I'm Spizzy, so I'm very nervous, always am, and usually we've been playing our new home here, we haven't had that many people, and suddenly, I guess it must be Damien and Jeffrey, they're so famous, we're all filled up, so I'm just used to finding 3 people here, and suddenly, oh my God, there's faces, there's people. So that's very strange, and here I decided to be very controversial. Well, I'm always controversial. I decided to be very controversial and filthy tonight with my monologue. So be prepared, you're all seated, that's good. So number 1, I'm going to explain to you 3 things tonight. In the first part, I will explain the US election, which I'm sure you've heard enough about, but I will explain that because it's confusing. And the second thing I will do, is very important, is I will explain sex, because I know you're all worried about that. It's all on your minds, and it's not the front of your minds, it's the back, so I'll explain that. And in the third part, later I will explain, which is totally appropriate because I'll be interviewing Damien Atkins, I will explain theater. Okay. So in terms of the USA election, so I figured it all out, and I wrote, no I didn't write it, because I'm not Sky. Sky wrote a blog about, another blog nobody reads, it's called, about the US election, where he explains it all. And I kind of agree with Sky, strangely enough. This is what I think happened. I've talked a lot about the men's. I will have to say, I talk about men at Spizzy. Spizzy, he talks about them a lot, and how men are I like men. I'm gay. I like the men, and I think that the whole election is about gender. Okay, it's not about all this other stuff they talked about. It's about the fact that America wants a daddy. Okay, and they got a daddy. Now, I'm not saying, keep in mind, I hate Mr. Donald Trump. I'll state my politics right here. I don't like anything he does. Don't like anything he says. I think it's horrible. I think that we are going to see the end of the United States of America. Who knows, that may be a good thing. But maybe it's the end of the world. So we're all feeling a bit nervous about that, right? But, so take it within the context of that I'm not saying, oh, we need a daddy, that's a great thing. Well, I'm saying, basically, this is what I'm trying to say, is that I think that I hate to blame people, but I think the trans movement and the women's movement, this is where you started disagreeing with me, has done this thing where they say, men are bad, all men are bad, all men are rapists, masculinity is bad, toxic masculinity, men go away, penises go away. Penises cause all the trouble. We don't want to see them, we don't want to hear about them, they've been running the world, they fucked up, go away. Now, I think that was the problem, because what happens is that if you demonize men and say men should go away, they won't go away. And the problem is they come back, and they're very angry, and they want revenge, like Trump does, and they want to run everything. But it's also, the problem is that all men are not horrible. Spizzy is nice guy. I know, hard to believe, but Spizzy is nice guy. Lots of men are very nice, very kind, very loving. There are some who are not. The patriarchy, not such a good thing. Not at all. It causes a lot of pain and anguish, but somehow we have to separate the patriarchy, the structure, from men themselves. And I know, a few years ago I wrote against a book called I'm Afraid of Men, by Vivek Shriver. I got into a lot of trouble for writing, or sorry, I didn't write that. Sky Gilbert wrote it, but it was like very, very controversial because I said, all men are not bad. So anyway, I think the only thing that we can, because think about this. There are apparently a lot of young men in North America who are young men who do not know what to do, who are sitting around playing video games, they don't have girlfriends, they don't have jobs, and they don't know, they don't want to be, they don't know how to be a man. So what they do is, you heard this new thing? Your body, my choice? Have you heard that? That's the thing going on in the dark web, or about there in the web, apparently. These men writing, your body, my choice. The reason why they're writing that horrible hate is because they're so fucked up, and they don't think there is any place for them in this world. And you go, oh man, no place. Well, Unfortunately, I think that has actually happened. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't have women's liberation. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have trans liberation. They just have to say men are okay, being masculine is okay, and penises especially are okay. Could I have some applause, please? Even if you don't agree, just applause. That's all.
And this is a break.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about sex, because I know that's very important, of course, to me and to other people. Even though I'm older than the hills, I still manage to somehow do it. So this is the thing. What is sex? I have decided that sex is fetish. And unfortunately, we don't understand this, especially now, and it's causing a lot of, again, I'm solving all the problems in the world. It's causing a lot of problems in the world. So if I say sex is fetish, what I mean is, okay, so you'll go, oh no, I'm not into the old boot, right? I'm not all sexually excited by the old boot. So, no, maybe you're not. But the situation is that probably you say, oh, I like a man with brown eyes. Or, oh, I like a man with sometimes hairy chest. Or, oh, I like a man who makes me laugh, even. So you have this thing that you prefer. You don't know why you prefer. It draws you to someone. You want to hug them, have sex with them, maybe come all over them. And that is because that's what sex is. Unexplainable. You cannot tell why it's there. And as long as it's not hurting anybody, you should be able to be attracted to anyone or anything that you want to be. Okay? So if we don't understand that, if we start thinking about this idea that somehow, certain things are bad, like drag is a bad thing, or men who get turned on by women's lingerie, oh, that's a bad thing, that's fetish, bad. And the only thing I talk about this is because I've heard this around lately, and I won't say from where, but I've just heard from certain communities this feeling that, fetish, bad thing. And if you don't understand fetish, then you do not understand the sex. Okay, so that's what I think, and I know I've been very serious, and well, thank you for a little bit of the clapping, because we all know that we have these unexplainable things where someone goes, well, why are you attracted to that person? You say, I don't know, and sometimes we have to work that out, we get attracted to someone who's an asshole. It happens a lot. But anyway, but that's what it's all about, right? Is that we find that that's kind of unexplainable. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I have two guests tonight, Mr. Jeffrey Round, Mr. Damien Atkins, and what links them together is that they are both gay artists of different kinds, but they are both gay artists, and they are both out. And their work quite often, not always, but quite often has to do with the gay things. So we're going to start with Jeffrey Round, who's a writer, and Jeffrey is going to show us a movie first. So that's what we're going to start with. You please pay attention to the movie, and then Jeffrey is going to come up and he's going to read for you a little bit. So take it away with Jeffrey's movie.
I remember everything you said. I remember all the things you did. I remember every little thing we used to do. I remember the times we used to walk in the park, making love on the sand and lying in the dark. September, I hold another postcard in my hands. Now it's December and snowing. Your voice comes calling from some foreign land. But I remember all the sunny days of June. I remember the way you used to sing out of tune and tilt your head at the sky, howling up at the moon. I remember listening to the sound of the waves in the river, hearing your voice, oh, it made me shiver when you told me the wind and the seas were our brothers told me with me there could be no other one for you. I remember too. You told me I was the one. You told me lies. You gave me alibis. You told me I was the one. You told me I was the one. Now you're gone again.
Come up here, Jeffrey. There you are. Come up. Here's your microphone. Jeffrey's going to do a little bit of reading for us.
I decided today I wanted to introduce you to the classics, Laughing and Grief. That was the grief portion. I'm hoping this is the laughing portion. This is my new book, The Sulphur Springs Cure. It's about an 84-year-old woman who goes back to the scene of a crime that was committed when she was 14 years old. In Sulphur Springs, Ontario, if you know where that is. It's outside Dundas. And she needs to go back because she's tormented by what happened and never having figured it out. She has a gang of women that she hangs out with. They call themselves the Silver Swans, and they do an aquatic fitness routine in pools, and then they all get together and drink gin afterwards. So this is one of their gin drinking sessions. Are you enjoying yourself? Sheila asked one afternoon over gin and tonics at the bar next door to the Y. I'm only sorry you didn't ask me sooner, Violet said. I knew you were one of us, Sheila cried. They laughed to recall how earlier that afternoon a woman named Meena Nanda had caused a ruckus at the pool when they all thought she was drowning. I was sure she was having a heart attack, Sheila laughed. Meena had got the floating tube trapped between her legs and couldn't pull it out, resorting to flapping her water wings and flailing around till they rescued her. That was the most excitement I've had in years, Meena shrieked later in the bar. Violet had become comfortable enough by then to share a few things about herself with the others. This was usually late in the afternoon when they were on their third gin and tonic. It was still sharing, Violet felt, even if they wouldn't remember much of what she'd said the following week. I've been thinking about murder, she said, apropos of nothing. She'd been having more of her sleepless nights, the ghosts crowding in on her with their accusing spirit eyes. Conversation stopped at the table. All eyes were on her, human eyes. Who are you thinking of murdering, dear? Asked a woman named Sydney White, who they were all slightly afraid of because of her fierce scowls. Is it a daughter-in-law? Oh no, it's nothing like that, Violet hastened to reassure them. She scrambled to come up with a reason. I was watching a documentary on serial killers. It was very illuminating. This elicited several minutes of excited conversation about killers and their raisons d'etre. Nellie Bergeron had a real-life story about a neighbor who murdered his wife, making it look as though she'd committed suicide by locking herself in the garage with the car running and a hose siphoning carbon monoxide through the window. I think that sort of thing goes on much more frequently than we realize, Kay said. Most of the time when men kill, it's out of possessiveness. It's because they fear losing something. Either they fear losing their wives or girlfriends, or they fear losing their money in spousal support. I think you're right, dear, Violet said. Men kill to possess, but in killing they end up losing whatever they're trying to hold on to. Heads nodded all around. Several of the divorcees heartily agreed. It's true, said a woman named Miranda, who had flaming red hair and claimed it was natural, though they all knew it was dyed. When you're young and they don't want to lose us, they do whatever it takes to hold on to us, but later, when we're older, they can't drop us fast enough. Well, no one argued with that. If men kill to possess, why do women kill? Sheila wondered aloud. We like to think we don't, of course, Violet said. We prefer to think that women are above violence, but that's not true, is it? Anybody here ever try to kill anybody? Sydney's voice rang out. There was laughter and startled expression. Several of the women looked around as if seeking complicity in the question. Perhaps others, too, had thought such things even if they hadn't had the nerve to go through with it. I've thought of it, said a woman named Beata. I had a mother-in-law I couldn't stand. She was jealous from day one. She eventually broke up my marriage. Hell, I wanted to kill Harry after he left me, said a woman named Carmen. He convinced me we were both unhappy together and said we deserved a new start in life. I still loved him, but I knew he'd been bored with me for years. I thought it was my fault, so I gave him an amicable divorce. Not a cent of alimony. Then I learned he married his secretary 6 months later. He's lucky he's still alive. How much would you kill for? Asked Sydney, holding up her glass to them. Well, it depends who it is, said Kay. They all screamed with laughter. But why do women kill? Asked Sheila, all innocence and giggles under her curiosity about bloodlust. We kill when we're thwarted, Mina exclaimed. And when we're jealous, added Sydney. Heads nodded around the table as woman looked to woman and saw things there they had till then only suspected might lie deep inside themselves. One by one, they murmured their agreement on the possibilities that lay within.
I don't know. Did you always know you were a gay person? One time you were a little?
There was no word for it, but that's what I felt I was. I never had any variance. I had never had any self-doubt, self-questions.
Mm-hmm. And how did you know that? Was it because when we're not 12 or 13, when we're not a teenager, we don't know that about sex or anything, but I know that I knew something myself.
Well, I knew it by watching a Tarzan movie. And Tarzan fell from the tree and fell to the ground, and I wanted to be the one who came and nursed him.
Oh no, I get it completely. I used to look at Michelangelo sculptures, and that the bound slaves were particularly my favorite sculptures by Michelangelo. We had an art book by Art Gombrich, I think it's called, a famous book of art, and they had all of these paintings, all of these sculptures with the nude men in them. I noticed that. The other thing was, though, I had a horror of marriage, even as a child. Marrying a woman. Like, I didn't have anything against women, but the idea of marrying a woman was terrifying to me. And so were you one of those gay... Sorry, I'm getting very personal. Just say no, I can't answer this. And I didn't put this on my list of questions. But did you ever have a straight period when you were...
No, I did not, but I remembered the moment when I realized I wasn't going to get married to a woman. I was in theater school. It was in the green room. And there was this very funky chick who came in, and she was playing the piano, and I thought, that's the kind of woman I would have to marry if I ever got married, because nobody else would ever have me. And I thought, oh my God, I'm never getting married to a woman. It dawned on me just in that instant.
Well, I think for me it was the honeymoon. The honeymoon was terrifying. So anyway, let's say you knew from early age, and then were you also writing from early age?
From the very beginning. Yes, I'm making up stories, little dinosaur models, airplanes, all kinds. Everything had a story. I had to tell the story.
Now, Jeffrey writes, for those who don't know Jeffrey's work, he writes a gay novel. I know he writes many things, and this isn't particularly about gay things, right?
No, not at all.
But you do write novels about the gay detective, correct?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
did. Past tense.
Oh, they're over now. You've done them.
Well, I have two gay series. One is a comic one that takes place at gay resorts. I'm not finished that.
Oh.
But the other one is 7 books. It's finished.
Okay.
And how I know was because the character at the center of it, Dan Sharp, stopped talking to me after the 7th book. I've never heard from him since. He divorced me. He left town, and I've never heard from him since.
So he was kind of inside you, speaking with you.
Yes.
for the first 7 novels, and then he stopped. And it's interesting because was that a choice to write about the gay detective? And what was that like? I mean, obviously it was a choice, but I mean, did you think, oh, I'm going to write this book and Noah's going to publish it? Did you have trouble getting it published? What?
Well, I had trouble getting my literary novels published, particularly my non-gay literary novels published. And I was in Provincetown having a vacation, and I kept wandering around. All these strange things were happening to me, and I kept thinking, this is like being in a mystery novel without the body. And I remember being in the hot tub in the place where I was staying, and I looked out the window, and there were a pair of binoculars focused on me across the way. And so I like to say, well, I flashed the guy who was watching me, and then I had a flash of my own. I thought, oh my God, this could be a mystery novel, and I could write this. Because I hadn't taken mystery novels seriously at that point.
Right. And but I'm interested in if it was, because you've been quite successful with those novels,
Yes.
correct? But did you, so in other words, you were able to break into publishing through writing the gay detective novels?
No, I had one book prior to
one book
that.
prior
Yes,
to that.
yes.
So you didn't have any negativity from publishers about it, or did you just shop around a little bit? Because I
No.
know you're with a publisher that I know well
Yes.
right now.
No, I have to say I did. So my first book takes place in Europe. It was about the modeling industry, and the character in it is a gay character, and I could not sell that book. I sent it to every publisher in Canada. If the editors changed, I would resend it, repackage it, and resend it. Nobody wanted it until somebody said to me, hey, did you try the US? Did you try the UK? And I thought, well, no, I'm a Canadian writer. Why would I do that? And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's my last choice. I sent it to one British publisher, gay. I sent it to one American publisher, not gay. They both said yes, and I had to decide. But the book took place in Europe, so I thought, well, that's it. But there was like just a blackout period where nobody wanted to see what I was writing.
Now, do you find a difference between writing about the gay detective and writing about these women in this book? Is it like is this more difficult? Is it easier? Is it just different? Is it different?
It's not really.
Okay.
No. There's more of my family background in this. The book's dedicated to my mother, and I'll just mention something briefly about that. My mother, after I'd had all the success with my detective novels, my mother came to me and said, could you please write a book with less sex and less violence in it? And I thought, well, no, because nobody's going to buy it, you know. So I wrote it just to satisfy her, gave it to her. She was very happy, but I couldn't find a publisher. And then years later, someone said, do you have something with less sex and violence? I thought, yeah, I sure do. So I gave that. But the book's dedicated to my mother and her parents because the period it goes back and forth between August 1939, right before World War II, and then Violet, 70 years later, struggling with going back to where everything happened. So neither of them were that difficult for me because the character, when the character's in your head, it's they don't shut up.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering too if you think that first of all, his novels, I've heard him read some of his novels, and there's hot sex, right, in your gay detective novels.
You won't be disappointed.
No, it's definitely very explicit, and I was surprised because I always thought you were such a mild-mannered fellow. No, I really was, and we've been like ships that pass in the night all through the many years. and I've known you not at all well, but I've seen you around, and then I thought, wow, so Jeffrey's writing about this, and then you also read some erotic poetry, so I understand that's very much a part of your novels, and that must be one of the reasons why people like them.
I hope so. I don't get many dirty letters. I wish I got more. But,
And so tell me about these movies that you made. Like, is this about, was that the fellow that you write about in the, it was a poem about a young man saying goodbye to you, it seems, going away, letting like it fly away like a bird free. I got that metaphor. So I'm wondering if, was that the boy, was that the young man?
yes, it was.
Oh, wow! And you had already broken up and then you put him in the film? We weren't broken up. He just went away.
We were never together to break up.
Oh, okay.
So you know, he was a fling. He's still a good friend. He's around, and you know, I didn't write the song about him. I wrote the song years before I met him.
Okay.
But when I decided to do the video, I thought, I know who needs to be in this video with me. So that's.
So it was a kind of a relationship that existed in your imagination to some degree.
In the song?
Well, it sounds like it.
That was definitely about a relationship that went.
But your
wrong.
relationship with him was mainly in your imagination. Okay, now I'm getting too personal.
It was
But at least
mainly
you
in
didn't
bed.
end up with him. It was mainly in bed. Okay, well, I thought that was lovely. And I will say that it's not very often that we see these days, we see less and less of gay anything, in my opinion. Like you'll say, oh, there's this, there's that, there's the other thing. But from my perspective as a gay man, I saw this TV show recently called The English Teacher. Have you seen that?
No.
I highly recommend it. Has anybody seen The English Teacher? It's very funny. It's about a high school gay English teacher. And I found that I just watched it and it was very contemporary and he was very, like a big sense of humor. But the funniest moment in it for me was when the boy came to him, the student came to him and said, you know, teacher, I want to tell you that I am gay and I'm wondering if you can help me what to do. And so he just turned around and said, give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? There's lots of gay people around, there's lots of gay movies, there's lots of gay things, just relax. So it's very, very kind of not traditional in that way, and it very challenges some of the sort of melodrama. But I'm a person who doesn't think that it's all easy now, and everything is fine for us, because I don't think it is true. Here's a question for you. Is there such a thing as a gay culture? In other words, is there something that, like for instance, is this a gay book, even though you are not writing about the gay men?
I think you would say it has a sensibility, a queer sensibility that people can relate to, but there are no gay characters in it.
But that's what I'm saying, is that even though it's about women, that it's still a gay book somehow.
I would say yes. Other people may read it and say no. It's hard to define it because it started off being just a pure mystery, and then Mark, our editor, got hold of it and said, I think you've written a literary novel, you might want to think about that, and suddenly it took off in a whole other direction. But my mind filters things through a gay filter, a queer filter. I see the world that way. I mean, I've struggled to be who I am, as most of us do. We don't come out naturally. We have to fight our way out. We have to make, the effort to come out, and that involves a lot of thinking. So that thinking would definitely be in this book, I feel.
Okay, and has that been a struggle for you to come out?
When I was a kid? Yes, absolutely.
Right.
I grew up in Sudbury.
Go ahead.
I grew up in Sudbury. It's all rocks and miners and grizzly bears. I mean,
And are you more out now than you ever were? Whatever that means. What does that mean? Are you more comfortable with your gayness self now?
Once I came out, I was comfortable, period.
Okay, you were.
Right.
Okay,
I never
good.
changed. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And I mean, I think of this and I think of the Golden Girls. Like, this is very much a gay TV program, and it may have had some gay creators in it, whatever, but it's not so much about that. It's the fact that for some reason, I know, up until very recently, and I think it still happens, though I don't know if anybody even finds the Golden Girls anymore, but that movie is for gay men and gay young men a place to identify themselves,
yes.
A place to be. Well, I hope that you will continue with all of your gay writings and all your non-gay writings, or maybe gay writings, and I want to thank you for coming and talking to me. Thank you very
so
much.
Spizzy, can I just say thank you for what you do for me, and I know for others. I remember the first time I saw you perform at
Sky Gilbert, you're probably thinking of.
no.
Oh, me, Spizzy. Yes.
Yeah. At the Epochal Imp on the
Yes.
Danforth.
Yes.
Hope Thompson was a guest.
Yes,
and
Hope, yes.
Patricia Wilson was a
Yes.
guest. And what you did was you made me nervous, and I thought that doesn't happen to me anymore. And I think it's a good thing because it keeps me alive, it keeps me awake. And so thank you for doing that and not.
Well, Spizzy makes Spizzy nervous. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. Have another drink.